After all of that, hello, welcome to an adventure. I forgot to unmute. This episode is definitely an adventure in oh my. So if you're watching the VOD or just joining us, we had some tech issues, and so I dropped the starting soon screen in again so that we could have a new starting point for the recording. Welcome to Archival Adventures. I'm Anthony Wright Day Hernandez, Community Collections Archivist here at Virginia Tech, and this is a once weekly show where we basically do an unboxing of materials from our special collections and university archives. And today we have some very specific items. What was pulled for me was material about WUVT, which is Virginia Tech's radio station. Specifically about the station's history and such. But we kind of already did a WUVT stream back in April. So instead of potentially repeating ourselves, although that one was certainly a mess, it was my first attempt at an on-site stream, and it didn't go over very well. But the collection has material about the emergency broadcast system from the first decade of its operation. I don't think we have anything from the very, very beginning of it, but we have some early emergency broadcast system stuff. And it looked really neat. So that's what the focus is going to be. I do also have like FCC licensing and stuff like that if we want to look at it. But I think we're going to focus on the emergency broadcast system. So quickly, since we're looking at history, a quick glance at and recognition of Virginia Tech's history. Virginia Tech acknowledges that we live and work on the Tutelo and Monacan people's homeland, and we recognize their continued relationships with their lands and waterways. We further acknowledge that the Morrill Land Grant College Act of 1862 enabled the Commonwealth of Virginia to finance and found Virginia Tech through the forced removal of Native nations from their lands in Western territories. We understand that honoring Native peoples without explicit material commitments falls short of our institutional responsibilities. Through sustained, transparent, and meaningful engagement with the Tutelo and Monacan peoples and other Native nations, we commit to changing the trajectory of Virginia Tech's history by increasing Indigenous student, staff, and faculty recruitment and retention, diversifying course offerings, and meeting the growing needs of all Virginia tribes and supporting their sovereignty. Virginia Tech acknowledges that its Blacksburg campus sits partly on land that was previously the site of the Smithfield and Solitude plantations, owned by members of the Preston family. Between the 1770s and the 1860s, the Prestons and other local white families that owned parcels of what became Virginia Tech also owned hundreds of enslaved people. We acknowledge that enslaved Black people generated wealth that financed the predecessor institution to Virginia Tech, the Preston and Olin Institute. And they also worked on construction of its building. Not until 1953, however, was the first Black student permitted to enroll. Through inclusive VT, the institutional and individual commitment to prosim that I may serve. In the spirit of community diversity and excellence, we commit to advancing a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive community. Okay, so what are we looking at today? We have the records of WUVT. So there's a link there in the chat that will take you to this finding aid. We don't have everything from this finding aid here today. I only have this much of it. So I don't even have the box for the unboxing. But what I do have, I have folder 12 of box 2, which is WUVT history, folder 13 of box 2, which is WUVT history, folder 22 of box 2, which is FCC forms, riveting sounding that one, and folder 29 of box 2, which is FM operator licenses. Within the FCC Forms folder is where the emergency broadcast system materials are, and that's going to be our focus today. So yeah, from those, if people want to see things, I think there are some photographs in here, as well as some interesting things about orgies that would not, in some cases, in fact, in none of the cases would they violate Twitch's terms of service. But if you want, we can talk a little bit about the orgy. Yes, I said that word. You're not even gonna find, just looking through this list, you won't know, you won't understand. Okay, before we, just because I see the question marks. I have to find where it is, but we can do a very brief. Let me just find one. Oh, or did I mention it and it wasn't even pulled? Wow. Having a great day. Honestly, it's very calm here today. Exams are over. Campus is emptied out now. Yeah, that folder does not have I know that Sterling mentioned. Maybe I don't have it. I can still explain even if I don't have, because I don't seem to have it and I thought it was in here. Well, no, there's this one at least. Let me show you. What to wear to an orgy? Orgy, in this case, is the nickname for the radio station's organizational meeting. So, it provides a little bit of fun when they're talking about what could be a very, very dry meeting. So, please dress accordingly for WUVT's organizational meeting. News, production, sales, broadcasting, public relations, engineering, information systems, special events, music, and much more. What to wear to an orgy? Be honest, aren't you a little bit curious about what goes on? All in good fun. There are some great posters that are not here with me today, but there are some orgy posters that I was concerned might be here, and they would have had, honestly, they would have been fine. They had nudity, but I also had them up in our reading room windows for months and nobody complained. So I think they would have been fine on Twitch. But this is what we're here for today. The basic emergency broadcast system plan. What does everybody know about EBS? I know that there are sometimes viewers here that are not from the United States of America. So are you familiar with the emergency broadcast system? Hi, Puddlegum. So this wasn't just some out-of-touch execs inventing abbreviations that they didn't realize meant something else? What else does EBS mean? I honestly, I don't know of any other meaning for EBS, but this booklet, as you can see, somebody has written across it, outdated. This is the first revision. What I was talking about before, orgy. Also, I didn't say hi to people, so as we get going here, Hannah, thank you so much for the resubscription. 34 months. Amazing. And thank you so much for just being here and being supportive. Simsilica, it is great to see you. Key Squared, hello. Puddleglum. And Lord Portico, great to have you here. Everybody, thank you for joining me. And I'm sorry that it's been so chaotic this morning. This morning? It's not even morning here. This afternoon. Anyway, first revision of this. So this is the emergency broadcast system, I believe, launched in 1963. If somebody wants to double check for me the date, that would be great. Otherwise, I can look it up in a minute. This first revision of the basic plan was issued August 4th, 1967. It is a joint operation of the Federal Communications Commission, the Department of Defense, Office of Civil Defense, and the Office of Emergency Planning. So if you are not familiar, if you're not from the US and don't know, or like are from the US and don't know, the emergency broadcast system is an emergency alert system that's been in place since the early 1960s to alert the public when there is something they need to know about happening in their area. So in particular, the emergency broadcast system as it was started was designed to go out over radio broadcasts and television broadcasts. And if there were an emergency, it would let people know if they were near a television or a radio, and potentially give them instructions on what they needed to do to keep themselves and their family safe. More modern applications, like the system has been updated over time as newer technologies have come about. It still goes out over radio and television broadcasts, but now the big thing is pushing alerts to cellular telephones. And there was a couple of years ago, there was an actual alert sent out using the emergency alert system in Hawaii that was not supposed to go out. It was a mistake, but there was an alert sent in Hawaii a couple of years ago. I think, was it during 2020? I don't remember for sure, but the mistaken alert that went to Hawaii was about missiles coming from Korea toward the island. And I don't actually know. I've never experienced an actual activation of the system where the system came on and it was used to deliver actual emergency information. I imagine that happens probably with hurricanes and stuff like that. I've just never been in one of those myself. So my experience of it has always been tests where, like, once a month it would test, they'd test the system, and it would have an attention getting noise followed by a message saying, well, we'll read the message because it's in here. There was a test of the emergency alert system last month, I think it was, about half hour before this episode or this show went live, where they pushed a notification out to all of the cell phones physically within range of United States cellular towers. So yeah. Oh, you've had flash flood warnings go over the emergency broadcast system? It's good to know, because I've never actually experienced an actual activation of it. And I've only really heard about the mistakes. Sometimes if you're unlucky, EBS test broadcasts can knock out the sound on your cable box, and then you have to call into your tech support, and then you have to reboot it. Oh dear. That is unlucky. Okay, so let's find out more. What is this? What was it? I think this is somewhat fascinating. So it was one of the things that I saw, and I was like, we need to look at this. Basic Emergency Broadcast System, EBS plan. All right, so we got some contents here. We got it should be interesting to read the purpose. General considerations, organization, programming, authentication, tests, liaison, participation, annexes, approval, and concurrences. Okay, cool. And then that's odd. Does anybody else think that's odd? We've got the table of contents, and the table of contents says Part J, annexes, starts on page 11. But here we are on page Roman numeral 1, and then we have a list of annexes. That's just odd. But I guess that's a list of the annexes, which I'm guessing are like appendices? We'll find out. It's a very unusual table of contents. Whatever. I'm gonna zoom in so that you all get a slightly better view of the document, because we're gonna spend a bit of time here. But let's see the preface and the purpose. Basic plan for the Emergency Broadcast System, EBS. Preface. This basic plan for an emergency broadcast system, EBS, has been prepared pursuant to applicable provisions of the Communications Act of 1934, as amended. Executive Order 11092, signed by the President of the United States on February 26, 1963. So I was correct. 1963 is when the emergency broadcast system was created, based on the requirements of the White House, the Department of Defense, Office of Civil Defense, and the Office of Emergency Planning, and on the rules and regulations of the Federal Communications Commission. This basic emergency broadcast system plan contains, among other things, approved basic concepts and designated national level systems, arrangements, procedures, and interconnecting facilities to satisfy the White House Statement of Requirements for presidential messages and national programming and news. That is the very official sounding title. Interesting. Oh, and we have archival boxes wearing Santa hats flying onto the screen right now, amidst other emotes. Hello, welcome in Raiders, welcome in 16-bit Eric, welcome Whimsies, it is great to see you. Pretty Witchery, welcome. Shadows of Life, hello. Blue Rooster, hi. Castabras, Story Girl, hello. Hi, welcome. Welcome Raiders. If people here are not already following 16-bit Eric, I encourage you to do so. Eric is a wonderful streamer with a wonderful community, and you will not be disappointed. For anybody who's just joining, this is Archival Adventures. I am Rogan27, which is the channel you rated in on. I'm also Anthony Wright Day Hernandez, Community Collections Archivist at Virginia Tech. This is a show I do once a week where I share materials from special collections and university archives live on the internet And it currently streams to both the library's Twitch channel, twitch.tv/VTUL Studios, as well as my own personal channel, which is Rogan27, which is the one that you arrived on. So welcome in if it's your first time here. Rating this stream after Eric's stream is the highlight of my Wednesdays, Blue Rooster. Thank you so much, as in hanging out in both streams. That means a lot. Thank you very much. I do very much appreciate having Eric bring the whimsies by, because you all are fun. It's a great community. What we are doing today is we are exploring the emergency broadcast system, which is a United States system for getting emergency information out to the public. It was created in 1963 by a presidential order. So not an act of Congress. It wasn't just a regulatory agency setting something up. It was a presidential order, an executive order 11092, signed by the president on February 26, 1963. And I don't off the top of my head know. We constantly interrupt you. It's a grand time. That's good. Puerto Rico's on the map? Yes. Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico are all on this map. This is from 1967. This is the first revision booklet from 1967. I don't know. I assume Guam is also covered, as well as like what would it be, the U.S. Virgin Islands? But I wonder if maybe those became territories after this was published. I'm not certain. What was I looking up? I don't remember. I was gonna. Oh, who was the president in 1963? I don't know off the top of my head. And so I was gonna look. Was it Kennedy? That was my initial like thought, but I wanted to double check before I said it as a declarative statement and then found out I was wrong. So yes, this would have been Executive Order 11092, signed by President John F. Kennedy, that actually created the emergency broadcast system. So yeah, and just because now I have brought it up and it's worth checking, when did Guam become a U.S. territory? It seceded from Spain in 1899. Since the 1960s, no, wait, where? I honestly thought this information would be easier to find. But also, I didn't just type the question into a search box. I went looking for an information source. It was recaptured from the Japanese during World War II in 1944. So, yeah, it seems like, I don't know why it's not on the map, because it seems like Guam would have already been, and I presume it's covered. If anybody happens to see Adventures of Tony pop into the chat, we can ask, because they will know. Anyway, the Basic Emergency Broadcast System Plan contains approved basic concepts and designated national level systems, arrangements, procedures, and interconnecting facilities to satisfy the White House Statement of Requirements for Presidential Messages and National Programming and News, which appears to be a standard of some sort. Provision is made herein for the development and designation of facilities, mutually compatible operational arrangements, procedures, and interconnecting facilities to satisfy the requirements of regional, state, and operational area, local authorities, in addition to presidential messages and national programming and news, as set forth above. Okay. So, good. Detailed regional and state emergency broadcast system operational plans. Let's see. Okay. Necessary data and instructions for the emergency broadcast system are contained in annexes. These annexes will be reviewed and supplemented as required. Weird. They're calling them annexes, but functionally, in my experience, what they're calling annexes tend to be referred to as appendices or appendixes. So I'm just very confused by that term. I just hadn't encountered it in this way before. Blue Rooster, your godmother was born in Guam, which made getting her birth certificate quite the odyssey. I have never been to Guam. It is a U.S. territory located in Micronesia, and I've never had the opportunity to go to Micronesia. Anyway, let me progress, because boy, have I gotten bogged down. Sorry. Purpose. Let's purpose. The emergency broadcast system has been devised to provide the president and the federal government, as well as state and local governments, with a means of emergency communications with the general public through non-government broadcast stations during the and following an emergency action condition. Mass communications from such sources might include, but not be limited to, messages from the president or other federal officials and national, regional, state, and operational area local authorities, providing instructions, news, and information. This basic emergency broadcast system plan provides for utilizing the facilities and personnel of the entire non-government communications industry as on a voluntary organized basis to provide the nation with a functional emergency system to be operated by the industry under appropriate government regulations and in a controlled manner consistent with national security requirements and the rules and regulations of the Federal Communications Commission. So this isn't like official law, policy, whatever. This is a guide to why does this exist? It still sounds very technical, but essentially it's what one would think it is. They're going to use all means of public broadcast available to let people know when there's an emergency. Before everybody arrived, we talked about how sometime last month or whatever, actually during Eric's stream, there was a test of the emergency broadcast system, but specifically testing alerts pushed to cell phones. EBS consists of the facilities and personnel of non-government broadcast stations and other authorized facilities licensed or regulated by the Federal Communications Commission, including approved and authorized facilities or systems, arrangements, procedures, and interconnecting facilities. Licensees participating in the EBS have been issued national defense emergency authorizations by the Federal Communications Commission, which the radio station, of course, was one of the licensees participating, so has one of those, which authorize operation in a controlled manner on a voluntary organized basis during a grave national crisis or war. The approved and authorized facilities, systems, arrangements, and interconnecting facilities set forth are adaptable for use on a voluntary organized basis during day-to-day situations posing a threat to the safety of life and property, including those conditions constituting a state of public peril or disaster. Okay, so essentially the stuff here, the stuff documented in this booklet, is adaptable for use voluntarily. They aren't required to. During day-to-day situations posing a threat to the safety of life and property, including states of public peril or disaster. I love the phrasing there. Oh, it's amazing to me how this just seemed like a natural part of the functioning of a society. Like growing up, like once a month or whatever, when the TV would pop up with the a screen, and it would play the noise that the emergency broadcast system uses, and then there'd be like a mechanical voice saying, "This is a test of the emergency broadcast system." And I grew up with it, so it seemed like completely normal. And to look at this and realize it was entirely voluntary for companies to do that, it's somehow befuddling that they actually did. You grew up with it in Spanish. I wonder, I don't know if there's a Spanish copy in here. We'll have to look. Such use of the emergency broadcast system capabilities during day-to-day situations is in accordance with Section 1 of the Communications Act of 1934 as amended, which states that one of the purposes of that act is to promote the safety of life and property through the use of wire and radio communication. The circuits in daily use by the commercial radio and television networks, however, do not lend themselves to this application. See Annex 8. Okay. General considerations. The listening and viewing habits of the general public are inherent factors for consideration and are conducive to the positive effectiveness of the emergency broadcast system. Because the instinctive reaction of the average person is to turn on their radio or television set in time of emergency. Nevertheless, continuing public education is required to increase public awareness of the emergency broadcast system as the established medium for receipt of emergency communications by the general public. So we can extrapolate from this the whole reason why they're like working on pushing out notifications to cell phones is that the natural reaction of people today would be to reach for their phone to try and find information about the emergency. Under peacetime conditions, presidential broadcasts are handled entirely by non-government radio and television broadcast facilities. Under conditions that would call for the activation of the emergency broadcast system, the normal flow of communications probably would be disrupted, destroyed, or altered. Okay, these are their thinking going into making it. The authority to activate the emergency broadcast system rests solely with the President of the United States. I did not know that. This authority has not been delegated except in the following specific instance. In the event an enemy attack has been detected, the President has authorized the White House Communications Agency to activate the emergency broadcast system, and the Office of Civil Defense is authorized to follow with the dissemination of appropriate warning messages. This is accomplished by releasing the emergency action notification, which constitutes the notice to all stations of an emergency action condition. Both the emergency action notification and the emergency action condition termination are transmitted only via the emergency action notification system, see Annex 5. Okay. I wonder if that's still the case, if it is still the sole authority of the president to activate the system. Preceding, during, and following an enemy attack, mass communications from the president to the people and the dissemination of news and information are vital to the survival and recovery of the nation. I just realized it's really amazing to me, kind of interesting. I was in the DC metro area during on September 11th, 2001. I assumed that the emergency broadcast system probably got activated, at least regionally, in New York, but potentially in DC, but I don't remember it being activated where I was. Although I was at work, and there was one television and it had very spotty reception. Most of the information I got that day was by searching the internet. And most of it, I ended up having to go places like the Irish Times or the BBC in order to find sites that were not overloaded with traffic. In a post-attack period, communications to the surviving population will depend almost entirely upon the use of non-government broadcast facilities and personnel. Sufficient numbers will remain operational during and following emergency action condition to permit communication with a substantial portion of the general public. Okay. Cool. Under the provisions, the communications agency will deliver messages. Yeah. Okay, cool. As stated above, the nationwide commercial radio and television, oral, broadcast networks, and related bypass and other continuity of service arrangements are reserved exclusively for distribution of presidential messages, national programming, and news. Therefore, emergency intercity program distribution facilities such as state defense networks, FM? State defense networks? Use FM, apparently. Okay. And leased intercity common carrier private line facilities and others will be developed and included as component facilities of detailed regional and state emergency broadcast system. Operational plans will be used for regional, state, and operational area programming during an emergency action condition. Lots of words. According to Wikipedia, for what it's worth, it was not activated in 2001 because by the time it could be, there was already so much media coverage that it was unnecessary. Key Squared, that's interesting. Thank you for checking on that, because I couldn't remember it being activated, but I just remember all of us like sitting at our desks using the internet to find information. And when we thought about just going home, there was no point in leaving because the road was just jam-packed with cars. A high order of priority for use and restoration of all approved interconnecting leased common carrier private line facilities. Okay, sure. I'm not gonna go page by page right now. I'm gonna look for more of the interesting things. Programming priority. The responsibility for providing continuous emergency program service to be broadcast by each authorized participating station rests with the participating stations designated in addition to originating continuous common programming. Such originating point or points must have the capability of rebroadcasting other sources of programming, including presidential messages, state programming, operational area programming, national programming, and news, including regional programming. So top priority is presidential, 2 is state, 3 is local. Priority 4 is then national programming and news. It was your first day in a new lab job in the DC suburbs? Wow. I was working in Reston, Virginia at the time for a telecommunications company. Okay, let's see. There's stuff. Oh wow, there's an actual copy of Executive Order 11092 in here. We're not going to read an entire executive order on stream because that seems a little bit dry, even for this program. But that's interesting to me that it's in there. Second method? Oh, okay. I was like, this is page 41. Just happens to just be tucked in here between pages 24 and 25. Yes. I want things more like the pink pages right now. Ooh. So basically, I'm looking at the annexes now, which my brain still thinks should be called appendixes, but emergency broadcast system, activation, authentication, termination. Yep. President can activate it. Activation of the system is effected by transmitting a notification. We already read most of that. First method. From the President of the United States via the White House Communications Agency to the Associated Press and United Press International. Thence, via automatic selective switching and teletype, emergency action notification to all standard FM and television broadcast and other stations subscribing to the Associated Press and UPI radio wire teletype networks. I wonder how that's been updated over the years. I assume it's some sort of digital transmission now. Like, I would be surprised if they're still using teletype to activate, but it might actually be a good idea if they did, because teletype probably would continue working when other things went down. Second method. From the President of the United States via the White House Communications Agency to specified control points of the National Commercial Radio and Television Broadcast Networks, the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, which AT&T is what they're called, and other specified points via a dedicated teletypewriter network. I've never seen teletype written out as teletypewriter. Interesting. Thence to all affiliates via any available commercial radio and television internal networking apparatus or network alerting facilities. Anyway, I know they still had a teletype the last time I worked in a radio station. So I haven't been over in the radio station in a couple of years at this point, because it's been a couple of years since the last time I was on air. And I haven't looked. I'm curious now if there's a teletype machine in the radio station still. Third method, off-the-air monitoring of a standard FM or television broadcast station by other standard FM and television broadcast stations and FCC licensees for receipt of the emergency action notification. All broadcast station licensees are required to install, maintain, and operate radio receiving equipment for receipt of the emergency action notification at this level. Fourth method, off-the-air monitoring of standard FM and TV broadcast stations by the general public who are listening or viewing or whose receivers can be activated by standardized selective signaling transmission by said stations. Group is under study by a special NIAC working group. Will not become effective until a final recommendation. Okay. Interesting. It's interesting to me that the Associated Press and UPI are the two official outlets for activating it. The emergency action notification, EAN1, without attack warning message. Detailed instructions will be furnished all standard FM and television broadcast stations to advise them as to the details of transmission of the emergency action notification in this form via the AP and UPI radio wire teletype networks, and the procedures to be followed upon receipt of an emergency action notification without attack warning message. So how does that differ from with attack warning message? Standard and television broadcast stations to... It is really confusing to me how... No, they are identical up to that point. Sorry, my eyes are just like... I was trying to compare the two, and they were tracking both of them differently. Emergency action notification in this form. Okay, so those are identical, except for one has and one does not have notification of an attack. Okay. Ooh. Message number 1, and we have, okay, let's see what some of these say. NDEA primary relay stations. These instructions must be posted at the studio and transmitter control point. All NDEA primary relay stations shall follow these procedures. Upon receipt of the emergency action notification, all broadcast stations shall do the following: discontinue normal program and broadcast the following announcement. We interrupt this program. This is a national emergency. Important instructions will follow in 30 seconds. And just for clarification, for anyone listening, this is not, in fact, a national emergency. We're just looking at some historical documents. Transmit the emergency action notification attention signal, which is the beeping noise. It's a very difficult to ignore noise. Cut the transmitter carrier for 5 seconds. Sound carrier only for TV stations. Return carrier to the air for 5 seconds. Cut the transmitter for 5 seconds. Return to the air and rebroadcast 1000 CPS steady state tone for 15 seconds. I do not know what CPS stands for here. I'm trying to find out what. If anybody knows. Cycle per second. It is a once common English name for the unit of frequency now known as hertz. Which, in looking at that sentence, I was expecting and almost commented that I normally see hertz. And in fact, it's 1000 hertz. It's just that it used to be called CPS. I did not know this. That's really cool. That is a tiny little detail that somebody writing historical science fiction would find that really useful. Or honestly, any sort of historical fiction could potentially find that useful. I did not know. 3, make the following announcement. Again, I am not officially announcing emergencies. This is an emergency action notification. All broadcast stations shall broadcast emergency action notification message number 1, white card. This station has interrupted its regular program at the request of the United States government to participate in the emergency broadcast system. During this period, some stations will stay on the air as part of the emergency broadcast system. Those stations will broadcast news and information for the general public in assigned areas. You should now tune your radio dial until you hear a station which is broadcasting news and information for your area. Until further notice, this station will not be broadcasting news and information for your area. I repeat, this station will not be broadcasting news and information for your area until further notice. You should now tune your radio dial until you hear a station which is broadcasting news and information for your area. I repeat, that's an interesting notification. Huh. And it's like a total script. Like, I wonder. Oh, and it just keeps going, but it's just a repeat of what it was before. I think this version is specific to, like they've cut out a couple of pages here, and I'm wondering if that is because, so there were cards here, and then there's one between this one and the next one that has been removed, and I wonder if those were posted or if those were ones that this station wasn't supposed to use. So it could be that this station had a slightly different message to read. Ah, hey, look. Here are those cards that were removed. So let's see what the messages say. Also, they're attached together with string. Oh, no, they each have like a little string on them. I'm sure that these were like hung in the radio station for easy access. That's kind of neat. Okay, so yellow card. Oh, but we have the page for the white card. It's exactly the same as the one that we just saw. They're just multiple copies. Okay. Well, let's look at the red card then. This is message number 2. Alternate and non-NDA, so NDEA, alternate and non-NDEA stations. Oh, and this is one with the attack warning. So the white card is without attack warning. And the red card is with attack. So if it were activated in 1967 because of an attack, the message would have been, "We interrupt this program. The Office of Civil Defense has issued the following message. This is an attack warning. Repeat, this is an attack warning. Attack warning means that an actual attack against this country has been detected and that protective action should be taken. Important instructions will follow in 30 seconds. That's a sobering message. And then you get the tone at 1,000 hertz. And then you get the Office of Civil Defense has issued the following message. This is an attack warning. Repeat, this is an attack warning. Attack warning means that an actual attack against this country has been detected and that protective action should be taken. This is an emergency action notification. All broadcast stations shall broadcast emergency action notification message number 2, red card. This station has interrupted its regular program at the request of the United States government to participate in the emergency broadcast system. During this period, some stations will stay on the air as part of the emergency broadcast system. Those stations will broadcast news and information for the general public in the assigned areas. You should now tune your radio dial until you hear a station which is broadcasting news and information for your area. Until further notice, this station will not be broadcasting news and information for your area. I repeat, this station will not be broadcasting news and information for your area until further notice. You should now tune your radio dial until you hear a station which is broadcasting news and information for your area. And then it repeats. So pretty similar, except the slight change of saying, there's been an attack. Tests of the third method of the emergency action notification system. Blue card. Post one of these cards in all studios and broadcast operating positions. Okay. A test transmission by standard FM and television broadcast stations once each week on an unscheduled basis between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and local sunset is required by Section 73.961C of the FCC Rules and Regulations. Did that change? Because I remember it being like once a month. So it must have changed, but wow, they were supposed to test it weekly? Display the slide. So, test procedure. Television broadcast stations shall display the emergency broadcast system slide during the following test transmission procedure. Discontinue normal program and make the following announcement. This is a test. For the next 60 seconds, this station will conduct a test of the emergency action notification system. This is only a test. And then they transmit the attention signal. And then, after the signal, this message should be familiar to most people who grew up in the United States of America. This is a test of the emergency action notification system. If this had been an actual emergency, you would have been advised that an emergency action notification had been released by direction of the President of the United States, possibly an attack warning, and that the emergency broadcast system was being activated. The broadcast industry of name of state, in voluntary cooperation with the Federal Communications Commission and other federal name of state, state, and local authorities have developed a name of state emergency broadcast system to keep the residents of name of state informed with news and official information in the event of an emergency. If this had been an actual emergency, you would have been instructed to tune to one of the broadcast stations in your area. This concludes this test of the emergency action notification system. The date and time of the test get entered into the station operating log. So the language there, not exactly what I was used to growing up, so clearly been revised since this time, which makes sense. This was the very first revision. The system was created in '63, and this is from '67. But then there's also a yellow card and looks like another blue card. So the yellow card, which has nothing to do with telling people that they need to get off the field of play. These instructions must be placed at the transmitter control point and at the AP-UPI radio wire teletype machine. All stations shall follow these procedures. The emergency action notification will be released upon direction. Yeah. Upon the release of an emergency action notification, normal radio wire teletype service will be interrupted. The following will be transmitted in rapid sequence. Transmission of a full line of X's. 10-bell alarm. Transmission of the emergency action notification and instruction will be made in one of the two following forms. There's both the with and without attack, and it's basically the same language that we looked at before, but then followed by an authenticator word, which interestingly, there is no authenticator word noted here, so I'm not sure how they're supposed to know what the authenticator word is. But basically it's like a call tree. You receive it on the teletype and you're supposed to send it back out on the teletype. Post one of these cards. Okay. Instructions regarding tests of the first method of the emergency action notification system. All test transmissions over the first method will consist of the following transmitted in a rapid sequence: a full line of X's, a 10-bell alarm, the test text as follows: testing emergency action notification system. Repeat, testing emergency action notification system. If this were not a test, you would receive a message authenticator word followed by the emergency action notification, possibly a civil defense attack warning message, and the same message authenticator word transmitted again. Testing emergency action okay, yeah. I don't know, I find it really interesting. I also, at one point in time, had a declared major in College of Emergency Administration and Management. So maybe there's a reason I find it interesting. Emergency broadcast system. Emergency action notification system. Wow, we've got a diagram. National level features, state level, local level. We can dig into that if people want to, but EBS, a new beginning. Is there a date on this? Sadly, no. I have watched with interest and excitement the re-evolution and implementation of the new beginning for EBS since becoming Defense Commissioner. Major revisions of the Emergency Action Notification System, EANS, and Emergency Broadcast System, EBS, rules and regulations have been adopted by the FCC. Major changes include a simplified EBS checklist, simplified authentication procedures, deletion of the civil defense attack warning from the EBS emergency action notification, positive control and double-checked authentication of at the origination source prior to release of EAN or closed circuit text. Improved arrangements have also been made for the use of EANs and EBS by the state governors and local authorities. As Defense Commissioner, I believe that it is absolutely essential that the President and state and local authorities have an efficient and reliable means of communication with the public in times of emergency. This may be accomplished by all of us working together. Only by this kind of cooperative effort can we achieve such a new beginning. Charlotte T. Reed, Defense Commissioner. This is, I don't know, I think it's interesting. Yeah. More annexes. Criteria for eligibility, authorization. fascinating to me because I've never actually like really thought about the fact that somebody had to create that entire system and somebody had to maintain it and somebody had to, it never occurred to me that, because it was just always a part of life. Huh. Really, really interesting. NIAC number 1 is WTOP. I'm not going to go through this entire list, but interesting. So that was the emergency broadcast system thing. I don't know if there's more in here for that. I've got FCC interference complaint forms, apparently. We could definitely glance at those. FCC Mass Media Bureau customer service standards. Riveting. More emergency broadcast system. Let's see. January 21st, 1976. Sorry. I saw it. I just read the numbers backwards from. Anyway, EBS, attention signal equipment installation requirements clarified. With the advent of the new two-tone EBS attention signal, the location requirements for EBS equipment must be further clarified. The new two-tone system does not rely on carrier interruption, but rather on audio programming only. Thus, EBS two-tone equipment, encoder and decoder, need not be located at the control point of the transmitter. Rather, it may be located at the studio where programming is accomplished. This brings up two situations which must be clarified. The first involves co-owned, co-located broadcast stations, e.g. an AM and FM station licensed to the same entity with combined studios, which that sentence right there describes WUVT. In this situation, the licensee of the co-located stations needs only one encoder and one decoder to satisfy the EBS equipment requirements of both stations. The second situation involves broadcast station transmitters, licensed to the same entity, located at different geographic points, but programmed from a common studio point. For example, educational television system. In this situation, the licensee may apply to the commission by letter to request the use of only one set of equipment. Okay. The EBS equipment must be installed in such a way that it enables the staff at normal duty locations to monitor the emergency message and to act accordingly. January 16th, 1976, emergency broadcast system expanded to serve communities' total emergency needs. The FCC has moved to expand the versatility of the emergency broadcast system by increasing its use at the state and local level for day-to-day emergencies for those communities expressing a desire for this service. EBS provides a means for distributing emergency information swiftly to licensees and regulated services of the FCC, non-government industry entities, and to the general public. The EBS is made up of AM, FM, and TV broadcast stations and non-government industry entities operating on a voluntary, organized basis during emergencies at national, state, or local levels. At the national level, EBS already effectively provides the president with a rapid means of speaking to the American people in time of grave national emergency. The FCC said it plans to extend this same degree of effectiveness to state and local levels to provide governors and local officials with a similar capability. Spearheading the effort to make the EBS more versatile are the FCC, which establishes rules and procedures under which broadcasters and other segments of the communications industry voluntarily participate in EBS. Office of Telecommunications Policy in the Executive Office of the President, and the Defense Civil Preparedness Agency. So yeah, originally it was just the president, and then by 76 they had expanded it so that states or localities could activate it. April 15th start for EBS two-tone attention system affirmed. So April 15th of 1976 is when they implemented the new two-tone system. That's interesting. Enclosed is a copy of the revised EBS rules and regulations, which were adopted by the Commission on April 5th, 1972. Deletion of the provision for broadcast of civil defense attack warning message. New national level interconnecting circuitry. Significant is the provision of the new simplified EBS checklist. Okay, cool. Revision. This is November 30th, 1976. Oh, it's a very actual policy. If people want me to read it, I can, but probably a bit dry. There's a letter here, though, from the executive director of the Federal Communications Commission, 1972, addressed to gentlemen. Because apparently only gentlemen need to know. On April 5th, 1972, the Federal Communications Commission revised the rules and regulations concerning the emergency broadcast system. Among the numerous changes is the deletion of the provision for broadcast of the civil defense attack warning message, new national level interconnecting circuitry and facilities, and revised procedures to preclude transmission errors. Provision for participation by television stations and educational broadcast stations, and the use of call signs in on-air identifications. So I'm wondering, it says one of the changes was provision for participation by television stations and educational broadcast stations. So I wonder if WUVT didn't become part of the network until 72, but it was still under the 67 revision of the guidelines, which is why we have a copy of that book. New simplified checklist, revised and simplified detailed state EBS operational plans. In order to expedite the preparation of the detailed EBS operational plans with a minimum of correspondence and administrative delay. Wait, a minimum of correspondence and administrative delay? We want to cut the red tape? The Commission has issued an EBS authorization to your station. It will be most helpful if you will either accept or decline this offer prior to June 15, 1972. In the event you elect to decline this offer, it is respectfully requested that you return the EBS authorization. Sorry. I'm not certain why I'm yawning. It's actually interesting. Apparently, I need more oxygen. Virginia State Relay Network. This map contains the most recent changes to the network. Interesting. So it looks like things start at WRVO or started, or WRVQ in Richmond is the one that starts it. And then it goes from there out across the state. WUVT is not on this map. Da, 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 da. This is 1977. This is actually kind of interesting that we have so much like specific information in here, but like I've never really delved into this topic specifically, like the emergency broadcast system. It's really interesting to me that it never even occurred to me. And of course it exists, but it never occurred to me. This is the area where Virginia Tech is. So detailed Virginia EBS operational plan, Radford operational area. And WUVT is, oh no, I'm not sure what designation of primary does. But WUVT was designated primary. The initiating one for the region is WRAD at Radford. Interesting. Huh. This is just really just, I never even really thought about this. And so having these to look through is kind of fascinating. 1981, June 19th. The FCC has amended the rules governing the emergency broadcast system and revised certain sections of the checklist. Enclosed are the FCC order, a change sheet, a red authenticator list, a self-addressed postcard. Interesting. Please update your checklist. Change 1 replaces the first paragraph immediately under the title Weekly Transmission Tests of the attention signal and test script. And change 2 replaced the announcement under step 4 under Weekly Transmission Tests. What? What is this? Why is this in here? It's neat, but this does not belong in this folder. We'll look at it anyway because it's in this folder, but it doesn't belong in this folder. Yeah. Yearbook photos? These don't belong in this folder either. Yeah, those are gonna have to find a new home because they don't belong in this folder. I'll have to fix that. But WUVT presents Radio Virginia Tech. It's a little booklet, and it's for their first anniversary, and I think that's just a Jack in the Box. It's sort of creepy looking. WUVT's first anniversary. Prepared by Tom Blaisdell and Ben Johnson. Cartoons by Bill Durham. April 1st, 1949. Dear students, faculty, and advertisers. Today, on our first anniversary, we would like to take this opportunity to thank all who have made WUVT possible. Thanks go to the following in particular: to the students who have given their unending support, to the members of the faculty who have given their approval, and to the advertisers who have helped to make WUVT a success by their excellent support. We, the staff of WUVT, believe that campus radio stations are assets to every college and every college town. It is an asset not only to the college as a whole, but also to the students who participate in this activity. It helps the college in that it gives publicity to the institution and helps to bind college activities closer together. It helps the individual student in that it gives those interested in the different phases of broadcasting a chance to gain experience. For those not interested in the actual work connected with the broadcasting field, it offers one of the best modes of entertainment and education. To the businessmen of the town, it brings them closer to the students through the medium of radio advertising. Within the pages of this booklet, we hope to familiarize you with the work of station WUVT. Sincerely yours, the staff of WUVT. And boy, the businessmen. Yes, gotta worry about those businessmen. 1949. So, of course, they are all men. We've got some names of people working there. How did WUVT come to be? We have a narrative from the people who created it. This is actually really cool because this is from 1949, talking about how the radio station came about. In the spring of 1947, a group of students drafted plans for a wired radio station that would serve all dormitories at Virginia Tech. Work on this system was begun in the fall of 1947. A staff was organized, equipment was built and assembled, and a business policy was conceived. Through the courtesy of the Agricultural Extension Service, studios on the top floor of the War Memorial Hall were made available to the group. Located there are all the microphones, phonograph turntables, recorders, and console. That's not where the station is anymore. It was only fitting that the men who worked so hard to make this station possible should be elected to positions of leadership when the station became a reality. Edward O. Talmadge Jr., who did much of the construction work, was elected director of the station. Bennett Nathanson was named business manager. Thomas M. Blaisdell, who practically kept the station on air by himself the first week, was appointed program director. The appointments of technical directors went to Gordon Thornton and John B. Quirk. The original announcing staff consisted of Bill King, Jarvis Howell, Clay Cummins, Bill Royal, Lewis Sharp, and Joe Ayers. Since then, many new members have been added to the staff. On April 1st, 1948, Bill King officially put the station on the air with a program that was to become the most popular thing at Tech during the afternoon, outside of baseball and football. Tech Jockey. Some descriptions of the shows. The Eddie Duchin Show. This program features Eddie Duchin and his orchestra with feminine guest vocalists Jane Froman, Georgia Gibbs, Kay Armand, and Eugenie Baird. The program is produced and transcribed by the USNAR. Which, the doodle here, they are interesting doodles. Stories to remember. Geraldine Fitzgerald, Melvin Douglas, Ralph Bellamy, Raymond Massey, and other notable actors are heard in a new Lest We Forget presentation of the Institute for Democratic Education. I don't know what that is, but it sounds interesting. USNAR Show. Another program of the USNAR with the George Barnes Octet and guest stars. What? You've heard of Geraldine Fitzgerald? I mean, there's probably more than one person named Geraldine Fitzgerald in the world. But it's also possible that you may have heard of this specific Geraldine Fitzgerald. I don't know. There are famous persons who have attended here. One of the present names that gets thrown out there as, look at our alumnus, is Hoda Kotb. Another program of the USNAR with the George Barnes Octet and guest stars. What, when, and where? A program designed to give the campus organizations a chance to let the students know about their meetings and plans. Proudly We Hail, a program produced by C.P. McGregor for the Army and Air Force Hollywood Stars. Of course, this was 1948. Virginia Tech was very much still a men's military academy. Know Your VPI, a program prepared from articles appearing in the TechGram designed to give students a better knowledge of Virginia Tech. In addition, frequent interviews are held with prominent officials. Interruption, please! Each Tuesday night, our announcer squeezes little bits of interesting information between the records. And UNESCO World Review. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization produces a news program each Monday at 7:15 p.m. She was in the Laurence Olivier version of Wuthering Heights. But is it the Geraldine Fitzgerald who attended Virginia Tech? Or, well, didn't attend because, well, no, could have attended because this was 48, so women were here. Did she attend Virginia Tech, the Wuthering Heights Geraldine Fitzgerald? Because if so, but if not, at first I thought she was related to Ella, but Google says she's an Irish actress on Broadway in the 1930s. Ah, okay. So, yeah. Probably not the Geraldine Fitzgerald mentioned here. Although, not outside the realm of possibility. I mean, we did have one of, we had a famous actress from Ziegfeld Follies, whose papers we looked at, who wasn't from here, but retired to the community here. Like, she didn't attend Tech, but she lived in the town. Popular. Tech Jockey, a disc jockey show with requests and dedications. Dinner music. Music designed for your listening pleasure during the dinner hour. Platter time. Popular recorded music, both old and new. Le Jazz Hot. The best in hot jazz with notes on the recordings by 2 student authorities. Anything from Dixieland to bebop or progressive. Jive from the Gym. 2 solid hours on Saturday night. Anything from Bach to Boogie. DJ Journal. Every day, Monday through Friday, one of our top disc jockeys plays Sweet and Swing. Wow. They were still referring to it as Sweet and Swing in the late 40s? Like, that was... Sweet and Swing were... I think of those as more like 20s era terms. I need to adjust my mental map of time frames. Strictly Informal, the program where the announcers manage to keep the station on the air. Wait, what? I have to... Okay, I have to start this one over because I laughed when realizing how it was presented. Strictly Informal, the program where the announcers managed to keep the station on the air, announcements read, and play poker all at the same time. These sound like they could be Twitch shows, honestly. Memories in Music, the best tunes of yesterday, every Saturday night. The Bill Durham Show, Bill Durham, character extraordinaire, does this show. I feel like I'm supposed to know this name. Strictly Informal sounds like a just chatting stream. Very much. No, not Bull Durham. Bill Durham, please. Maybe that's why my brain insisted I should know this name. Because, yeah, no. That's probably why. It was probably just because Bill Durham sounds an awful lot like Bull Durham, and Bull Durham is a name I should know. Anyway, Evening Serenade. Sweet and sentimental music to soothe your nerves after a hard week. Eddie Duchin Show. This program features Eddie Duchin and his orchestra, and feminine guest vocalists Jane Froman, Georgia Gibbs, Kay Armand, and Eugenie Baird. I guess late 40s. See, I think of the 40s and like USO shows and big band and that. Like when I think of like sweet versus swing or a conductor with his orchestra featuring feminine guest vocalists, that to me feels very 20s, 30s, not like late 40s, but apparently late 40s, because they use the terms on DJ Journal, sweet and swing, and then Eddie Duchin is very much in that line of like the named conductor and their glorious orchestra. I hadn't realized that was the 40s. Wow. USNAR Show, a program featuring the George Barnes Octet and guest stars, and Hillbilly Jamboree. This program is announced by a real hillbilly. If you don't believe it, just listen. Oh, there's potential for some problems there. But at the same time, also like entirely possible that it is somebody who grew up in the mountains in Appalachia and genuinely fits a lot of the stereotypes. That's not out of the question either. Classical and semi-classical. Concert hall. Classical recordings with notes by the announcer. And music to study by, a program designed so that one may study and listen at the same time. No announcements. The majority of WUVT programming today approaches music to study by. The library's program, Stacks on Stacks, is actually an outlier for the radio station. It's basically the only talk show on the station currently. All of the other shows are just music programming with like station call tag announcements and things like that between songs. Whereas the library's show plays music, but is a talk show with some songs, whereas all the other shows are music pretty much all the time. They did remote special events. To be frank, I know a fair few old-time bluegrass musicians who embrace hillbilly as an identity. Exactly, he squared. I feel like it was more pejorative then. So my guess is that its use in this context. So it's hard to say. Locals from the area would have been in that culture that is considered hillbilly. Because that's the part of the country that we're in. Like, this is the part of the country where that stereotype originated. Like, it's used to describe the people that are from here. So it's possible that it was just like a student from this area. But it's also possible that it's somebody making fun of it and putting on a voice for entertainment purposes. And it's hard to know just by the description. There was a period where record companies were actively promoting hillbilly music as a genre. How would that differ from bluegrass? Although, technically, I think if I want an answer to that question, I could just go over to the archives at Radford University, because they would have relevant things. Exactly the same. I just mean the use of the term changed over time. That makes sense. Yeah. So they did remotes at, looks like basketball games. Bruce King and Bill Buchanan give a play-by-play description of all home basketball games. Name bands WUVT carries, if at all possible, all name bands that come to campus for dances directly from the dance floor. Piano melodies, piano sketches by Julian Pinello, designed for easy listening. Hops, like a sock hop, yeah, a dance. Programs originating from student activities building featuring college dance bands. Plans are being formulated to carry programs from the stage of Burris. Burris Hall. Yeah, it's the main administration building today, but these programs will consist of convocations, concerts, and the like. Transcribed plays. They had a lot of stuff that they were doing. Great Scenes from Great Plays, a series produced by the Episcopal Church, emceed by Walter Hampton and starring such well-known actors as Basil Rathbone, Jose Ferrar, and Celeste Holm. Lest we forget The American Dream, a weekly series that combines the best in radio, action-charged stories written by ace scripters, dramatized by feature stars, top entertainment, pointing the way to a greater America. Very patriotic, which, considering 1948, patriotic programming would have been really popular then. Lest we forget Stories to Remember, Geraldine Fitzgerald, Melvin Douglas, Ralph Bellamy, Raymond Massey, and other notable actors are heard in a new Lest We Forget production of the Institute for Dramatic Education, or Democratic Education. I do not know what that means. That's something that might be really interesting to investigate. Proudly We Hail, a program sponsored by C.B. McGregor for the Army and Air Force, featuring top Hollywood stars. Featuring top Hollywood stars? That must be programming that came in from somewhere else. And then there's the actual, like, programming schedule from April 1st, 1949. They had a really full schedule. Lots of various programming. That's really impressive. This is a cool document. It definitely, WUVT bids you good listening. It definitely does not belong in the FCC forms folder. In fact, this folder, I feel like, should be broken into 3 folders, because there's this, like, I don't know, this belongs in WUVT history. And then there are FCC forms in here, but there's also, the majority of this folder is the emergency broadcast system, which should be in the title. So some changes possibly to the finding aid to come, because now that I know those now that I've seen the contents and I know that some changes would be good, I will endeavor to get those changes made. If they really are importing prominent actors, maybe it is the same Geraldine Fitzgerald. Yeah, like, possible. We have an entire folder in here that is these things. These are FM operator licenses. Each of the DJs had these things. So these are actual like licenses from like for the various DJs. And we have a lot of these. These happen to be from the 80s, the ones that I pulled out. So that's kind of neat, having the FM operator licenses of various DJs over the years. That's kind of a neat thing in this collection. Yeah. Hadley, it is 4:30-ish, so I'm gonna have to start winding down. But before we end, let me just, this is a photo from a newspaper article, it looks like, from the inside of WUVT. I have actually... When is this from? Because I don't know the date that this is from. I'm curious, just because when I've gone and done the radio show, like when I have co-hosted Stacks on Stacks, or been a guest on Stacks on Stacks, this is the board. The equipment there is a little bit different than what's there today, because there's like a spot for like a computer to run stuff, but the two turntables and a microphone are all present. This cassette deck is not, but the two turntables and a microphone, they are present there. And that is the space, generally what the space looks like inside the radio station today even, but this is definitely an older photograph. The station is located in the Squire Student Center today. And yes, I did have to emphasize saying two turntables and a microphone exactly for that reason, Blue Rooster. You now have Beck stuck in your head. I may not be playing songs on this broadcast about a radio station, but I'm still going to get songs stuck in your head. I'm still going to give you those earworms. I'm kind of sad because I didn't bring any of the orgy stuff. I only had that one article about what to wear to an orgy. This one, which if you came in on the raid, you didn't see. There are some really good orgy posters though, and I don't have them with me today. The orgy is what the radio station has called their organizational meeting for decades. So when they're trying to get students to come and like new freshmen or new transfer students arriving as the beginning of the year, and they're trying to get students to take an interest in the radio station and come and be part of the radio station and come up with shows and things like that, they advertise the orgy because it catches people's attention. And so they've got there's some really interesting posters from over the years advertising WUVT's orgy. Because if they can grab the attention and then let people know what it actually is, that's an effective marketing strategy. So yeah, the radio station has used that term, orgy, to refer to the radio station's organizational meeting for decades, and it's hilarious. Hi, Sterling. You are indeed late. We are wrapping up, and I was just lamenting the fact that there are no orgy posters in here. The only reference to the orgy in here is this article. That said, you were shook. If you want to see some of the orgy posters, I believe, let's see, there should be pictures of the exhibit that we put up for the radio station's 75th anniversary back in April of this year. I just have to find them. If you want to see orgy posters, yes. I don't know. Okay, but the place where it should be is apparently... Oh, okay. Okay. So the website is partially functional right now. That's fine. I'm just going to grab this link for you all. In case you want to see, what is located here is stuff about the exhibit that we had back in April. It has some photographs that include some views of the orgy posters, but I don't know what you're wanting clipped. Oh, the phrase about orgy posters. I don't have any direct, like, good scans of them that are on the internet. Maybe I'll have to do like a blog post about that, just to share some of them more broadly. But yeah, it's fun times. The radio station is a good group. I'm very glad that they are still going strong 75 years after they started. Sadly, I do have to wind us up for today because I still have to pack up stuff and get back to my desk, and then pop on out of here around 5. We have one more episode of Archival Adventures this year. It is next Wednesday. It is not high energy physics. It is instead arguably chemistry. Food science. Next week, Cookies with Kira. We have an array of cookie cookbooks. Archivist Kira will be joining me, and we will be celebrating the arrival of winter break and the season of midwinter holidays by looking at everything to do with sugar, cinnamon, flour, butter, vanilla, cookies. Just in time for the holidays. So come on by. We might be eating cookies on stream and then looking at archival materials. I don't know. There might be cookies present. If I could shove them through the internet at you, I would. But that'll be next week. I can report that snack foods and hot drinks are the primary interest of everyone in the high energy physics labs right now too. So it's still on topic. Exam time there, yeah. So yeah, the cookies next week, and then we do not have one the week after, but we will be back January 3rd, I think. Whatever the Wednesday is of the first week in January, we will return. And that episode, we will be looking at the journal of the chief engineer of the USS Dakota, which was a steam-powered gunboat sloop, a Union ship during the American Civil War. So we'll be looking, starting off the year with the journal of Philip Peltz, who was chief engineer of the USS Dakota. And then next year, we're going to do a little series of pulp speculative fiction. On the last Wednesday of every month, we'll be just reading stories from pulp magazines. So yeah. Oh no, thank you, Hannah. I have I knew what the time was. I'm just wordy. Let me look and see where we're gonna go. I have not checked to see what places are live and what they got going on. Oh wow. No, stop. Sorry. I swear I thought that computer was muted and it was playing noises. Well, I think we are gonna head over to the kelp forest today. Cause yeah, I think we're gonna pop on over to Monterey Bay Aquarium, have a chill rest of the day. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope that you'll be back soon, hopefully potentially next week for, some cookies. I really enjoy this program. I hope that you do as well. I know today the books were somewhat dry, but I also still thought that it was really interesting. But yeah, next week, cookies with archivist Kira, and if you all have thoughts or ideas of things you want to see on the show, you can always throw them my way. Yeah, thanks so much for joining me. Hopefully, I will see you all again soon. Until I do, keep exploring history, everybody.